She has said a lot, but in actual sense, what she could have just said was that our speaker today is innocent, spelled with 2 N's. But thank you nonetheless. Yes, as you have heard, I am a medical student in my penultimate year, but you can never tell which year you'll finish when it comes to UON medical school. So I was tasked with coming up with a presentation for the structure of a research proposal and research paper. So I hope I will be able to do it satisfactorily and you will be able to understand. So that is my name. And we'll move on to, so the outline today is that first we'll tackle certain terms pertaining to proposal and scientific paper. Then next will be the structure of a proposal. Then the structure of a paper. Yeah, so the outline is that way, as Nikita had said, short and sweet. Okay, then we'll finish in that conclusion. So the first things first, what is a structure? So from that image, you're saying a structure is more or less like a framework that can be used to, let's say, when you're forming when you're in your kitchen and you want to make, say, a cake, the recipe in this case acts like a structure for you to achieve a desired outcome. In this case, when you're looking at a research paper or a proposal, it's the same thing. You need to have a structure for you to bring out your idea in your proposal or in your research paper. I think you all understand what a structure is then, since you already went through high school and chemistry, hopefully. So what is a proposal? During this COVID period, we've been told to keep a 1 meter distance. So if somebody goes down on one knee, they still have to maintain the distance. I don't know how such proposals would have to work. But in actual sense, a proposal is going down on one knee or whichever knees, or even raising up your fist and asking that person to be your wife, or in this case, even to be your husband or to be your spouse, whatever title fits you. That is basically a proposal. When you're doing your research and you're required to write a proposal, you're supposed to go down on one knee or raise your fist or whatever and ask the committee that will be looking at your proposal for them to at least listen to you, listen to the idea that you have in mind. And when they say yes, everybody's happy, like you see in that picture. So first things first, the proposal should start with an introduction. Yeah, so the intro bit should be as exciting as to attract anyone's attention towards the idea you want to bring forward. Let's say you want to assess the effects of say smoking on the size of your big toe. So you can start by the big toe is a big issue, something that attracts the reader from the very beginning. You know how a Marvel movie starts, you can tell that something is brewing. So that's how your proposal should be. It should be brief, concise, and capable of attracting the reader to continue. And the bit of scientific communication is something that you will have to learn with time. It's more of an art. So you will have to develop it in an artistic way. There is no basic structure of how the intro should be, but the rules overriding it is that they have to be concise. And it has to introduce the statement of the problem. Why smoking, and why is it related to the big toe? You can say that the big toe is something of a cosmetic issue nowadays, and everybody wants to have a nice big toe. But smoking has been shown to affect the length of our appendages. So with that in mind, we'll want to see the effects of smoking on particularly the big toe. Yeah, so that should be your opening for your proposal. Then the next phase of the proposal is literature review. As you can see from that GIF, you have to understand what other people have read, relate it to the idea that you want to bring forward. Say you have read that in the past, people never used to smoke, so they had a particular shape for their big toe. And now with the increasing rates of smoking, then you've noticed that there's begun to there's the continuous shift of one morphology to another. And you'd want to link that with the introductory question that you already put forward in your introduction. That is saying that there is a connection between the introductory statement and your literature review. Literature review is an expansion of the introduction. It's adding beef to the introduction. You can use various search engines such as PubMed, Cochrane, Google Scholar, each of which should bring you various articles that you can use to beef up your literature review and substantiate the need for us to conduct this study. Yeah, so once you have done your introduction and you have beefed it up at the literature review section, the next bit is the rationale. The traditional structure used to look at justification first, then significance second. But nowadays they've thought it wise to amalgamate the two. You can still divide it into those two, justification and significance, because they serve the same purpose. So for justification, it's always ask yourself why. Why should we have to check the effects of smoking? Why smoking and not any other type of maybe maybe even ballet dancing. Why smoking and not ballet dancing? And why the big toe? Why not the thumb? So that is the bit of justification that becomes relevant. Why here? Why Kenya? Why Nigeria? Why Zambia? Why Mozambique? Why a particular region of Kenya, Nigeria, or Mozambique? Yeah, so the justification is the one bit that answers that. Secondly, the significance. The significance answers the question, so what? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, audible.
Okay, so the next bit is the significance. The significance answers the question, so what? I have said that we need to do this experiment now. We need to do this experiment here. And this is the particular time when this experiment will be pivotal. Yes. So after we have done it, so what? So what if people know that smoking changes the side of toe that you're getting? So what if your toe gets smaller or your toe gets bigger? So what? So that is usually one of the questions that usually not answered. The toughest, I think it's usually one of the toughest questions that you have to answer when you're coming up with your proposal. People need to see the essence of us conducting this research, because often you might want funding. And if you go to maybe say a pharmaceutical company, they might want to see if there'll be profits they'll gain from conducting this research. Will it be addressing some of the current problems that you're having? Will it bring profits? So the so what question is a relevant question that you have to always ask yourself whenever you want to conduct any research. So the why, to capture the justification, and the so what, to capture the significance. Then once you have done that, you need to make it clear that you will be tackling the chronic or the acute or the intermittent effects of cigarette smoking or cigar smoking or marijuana smoking on the right big toe, the left big toe, the big toe of males or the big toe of females or the big toe of human beings. Basically, you need to echo out your research question. Your research question is no different from the title of your proposal. So as we have used this example of the toe and smoking, your title can be the chronic effects of cigarette smoking on the big toe of Kenyans, of an adult Kenyan population. That's one of looking at it. The other ways could be the acute effects of cigarette smoking on the big toe of an adult female Kenyan population. So that being the title, your research question should be, what are the effects of cigarette smoking or chronic cigarette smoking on the big toe of a sample adult Kenyan population? Or like in the second one, what are the effects of short-term cigarette smoking on the big toe of a sample female Kenyan population? That is research question. So your objective, which is your title of your proposal, and the research question are basically the same thing. It's just wordplay. Often you might want to break this research question into specific ones. Yes, so in this case, you can say the effect on this, the appearance of the big toe as one of the objectives. The other one could be on the nail bed, looking at the bed with the nail of the hallux, or it could be the hair growth at the joint interface. So those could be the specific objectives that you'll have to work on. And going back, you'll notice that the literature review that I was talking about was something that you'll have to beef on, add meat to your skeleton, the skeleton that you brought up at the introduction. Often it is usually, it shows that you're organized by dividing this section, the literature review section, into subtopics that match the specific objective you want to bring forward. So that by the time somebody moves from literature review to rationale to objectives, they remember that, yes, I saw this subtopic in literature review. It makes sense for us to look at it. I saw this other subtopic. So your subtopics are elemental in structuring your literature review, and you'll find that they also help in developing the structure of the entire proposal, and later on when you're writing your dissertation or your short-term paper. So the next bit is the materials and methods. Since we are in the medical field, the materials and methods is basically human beings. That is the ideal material, in this case, the people. But there are usually those situations where somebody introduces a new drug, somebody wants to try out the effects of a particular herb once they've been manufactured or in their natural form, and you might not really want to test it out on humans initially. So you might need an experimental model. Say you want to use rats or you want to use rabbits. So those will now be your materials. You've shifted from humans to animals. And in the case of medical school, you're dealing with humans. Once you've already taken that oath, that Hippocratic oath, you'll be required to do no harm. So one of the ways you'll be practicing this is when you're conducting your research, you need to first of all find a model that suits the particular objective you want to carry out. And the models you may be using are rats or rabbits or even dogs. It depends with your idea, the idea that you have in mind. Then the methods that you'll be conducting have to be precisely described. The essence of having clear-cut methods is so that somebody can reproduce your work. It is the scientific method. So in all proposals, methods are essential so that people can replicate. The scientific method works on replication, okay, so that you don't end up preaching rumors to people. If your method is iffy, people might say that your conclusions are not justified, right? So this is the phase where once your proposal has been taken to the ethics committee, they'll look at your methods. If your methods are not straight up, it allows, there's a big latitude of error in your methods, then you might have to do some adjustments. This is the one bit where if you fail, if you don't get it right, you don't get it right. So you have to make sure that your methods are right and it matches the materials. Your method will describe the type of materials that you'll be using. Okay. As I'd mentioned, at times you might have to consider rats. And now that we're talking about rats, there is the ethics committee that you'll have to deal with. All proposals, so long as they're going to affect human beings needs to go through an ethics committee. You need to make sure that it is in keeping with the Declaration of Helsinki, a declaration that was arrived at to ensure that every intervention that research undertakes bears in mind that human beings' lives matter. And it's not just human beings, because also rats' lives matter. So often when you're writing your proposal, they might want to know, how are you going to, for lack of a better term, even the terms are proving difficult. How are you going to safely ensure that these rats peacefully have moved to the next stage? How are you going to euthanize them? Yes, so that is something that the ethics committee will have to look at. And rats have contributed a lot, if not rats, mice, or even rabbits, to understanding the human body. They have so many organs that usually match ours. Since they are mammals and whatnot, they are often used as materials. So rats' lives matter, not just blacks or whites or any other group. So then once you are done with your methods, and you will need to focus on your data presentation. How would you present your data? Is it in terms of pie charts, in terms of bar graphs, or photos? You need to be clear. You see, this is again shaped by your methods. Once you know your methods, it will be very easy for you to focus on this next bit, which is the data presentation. And the graphs are different. So as you can see in this presentation, that's a line graph. There are bar graphs, there are histograms, there are box plots. There are different ways in which you can present your data. So you need to be clear how you're going to present this data once you've started conducting your research. So often when you are doing your proposal, you need to focus on your limitations and how you have worked to eliminate them. Say when you're looking at the effects of smoking on a big toe, you need to see if the type of cigarette differs. Sometimes somebody might look at I only know of a sportsman, since I myself, I don't smoke. I know the sportsman. That was the one that was very common back then. I don't know if it is right now. But the different types of cigarettes might affect the validity of your study. So how have you ensured that you have only limited your sample size, the group of people you've included in your study, to have a consistent type of cigarette? Because if you have varied ones, then it will not be a clear-cut conclusion, a clear-cut assertion that the cigarette caused the big toe. It could be that there's a particular brand of cigarette that causes an increase in the size or increased hair growth at the joint of the big toe. But if you generalize all of them, you won't be honest in saying that cigarette smoking results in changes in the big toe. So you need to explain how you have met such limitations in your study. So you can say that we ensured that we captured only the people who smoke this particular brand. And that is a delimitation. You've acknowledged that this could be a limitation, and then there are particular delimitations that you will work on. Yes, the importance of a delimitation is to ensure that you, again, are not preaching rumors to the scientific community. Honesty is a big issue in science. We all need to maintain that. Then the next bit is your implementation timetable. How will you work out your research so that it achieves its desired outcome within a particular time frame. The often proposals are usually time bound. They could be time bound based on the tenure that you're in. Say you're a professor and you have been invited into a particular institution. Your tenure lasts for like five years. So you need to create a nice implementation timetable that factors in this time period. And one of the ways in which you can do this is there's one tool in Microsoft Excel, that's the Gantt charts. You can decide to use Gantt charts, you can decide to use any tool provided that your implementation timetable is clear-cut and it is time-bound. Yeah. Having a time-bound timetable, again, is something that you'll have to factor in because most of the times when you're doing your research, it's accompanied by other activities that you may be doing. You might be a professor, but at the same time, you stand as a board in a different committee. So this might be dismissed, but it is also an important aspect of your proposal. It can also determine whether your proposal will be accepted or not. Then once you're done with this bit, the next bit is your references and appendix. So the references are the various citations that you added in your proposal from previous works. And there are different styles that you might use depending on the school that you're in. It could be in psychology, School of Psychology. They might want you to use their American Psychological Association reference style, that is APA style. Or you could be doing research in, let's say, languages. They might want you to use the modern language, the MLA style. So like in the UON, the undergrads, they're often advised to use Harvard Elsevier. If you're doing your master's, either Chicago or Vancouver works. And each of these might have different groups. Every year they might adjust. So you might have like this APA system, 7th edition, APA system, 6th edition. So you'll need to check out with your supervisor which reference style they want you to use. And references are important because you need to give credit to where credit is due. You can't say that your research is going to be groundbreaking, and often your very first research is never groundbreaking, though that is good motivation for you to get into research. But you need to give credit where it's due. Somebody first did the research and gave you that idea that you currently have. You need to cite these people. So this is an habit that science has undertaken, again, in honesty, which is always the policy in science. And another habit that we should avoid is creating our own references. Yes, you might find that some guy has decided to say there is some link between the big toe and smoking. And according to studies, this person did this. We have reference tools for confirming that. We being science, I am not science, but science says that in its throne, that it will confirm that reference. So you need to make sure that your reference is valid and legit, and you need to cite to give credit to the person who helped you arrive where you are currently. Then the appendix section is another important section that you have to include in your proposal because it will capture certain important aspects. Remember, you are dealing with people. Yes, the fact that you're dealing with people demands that they give you consent to conduct this research. So one of the places where you will attach your consent form is the appendix. Yeah. When you want to investigate that smoking can affect the B size of the big toe and it not beer, you can say that we would make sure that we use numbers rather than names to ensure confidentiality. All this can be captured in your appendix. So your consent form is a must. It's a must because you'll be dealing with confidential information. And when you're relaying this to the person, they need to understand the details of the consent form. And they also need to understand that the information will not be used anyhow against them. And that you're doing this for the purposes of furthering knowledge in a particular field, and that you're respecting their privacy. Yes, respect is an important aspect in medicine and in medical research. So appendix is one place where you will have to attach that. Again, your data collection. How are you going to collect your data? If you're going to reach out to people and issue them questionnaires, we need to have a sample questionnaire that have appended at the appendix, hence the term appendix. Yes, that you've attached at the appendix. The other thing is often, since this is Kenya, not so many people are that quite conversant with one language. You may find that somebody is really fluent in English, but they don't really understand Kiswahili. Another person understands Kiswahili much better than English. So you might want to have a translated version of one of any of the documents you have in the appendix. If it is the consent form, you must have an English version, a Kiswahili version. Yes, one version that the committee that you'll be sending it to focuses on and accepts. That said, that is the structure of the proposal. From the introduction to the literature review, to your research question, then your objectives, from your objectives to materials and methods. In material and methods, you need to uphold high codes of high ethical standards. Then from materials and methods, move on to data presentation, implementation timetable, from implementation timetable, references, and your appendix. And you're basically done with the proposal. This is much easier than going down on one knee. I bet some guys can attest to that. So at this juncture, we're done with the first part. I will hand over to Mustafa.
Yes. Thank you very much, Innocent. That has been very, very helpful. It helped clarify a lot of issues as regards to the research proposal. I hope you've listened to him. This is, as researchers, this is going to be easier for you than going on one knee. He gave us some of the sections, as he had mentioned, the introduction, spoke about the literature review with the subtopics, which makes it easier and to link it up with the objectives as well as the rationale and justification. You talk about the rationale and justification objectives, material and methods, including how you're going to help the rats or mice pass on, data presentation, limitations and delimitations, implementation table references, and appendices. So I hope you are quite attentive. We'll have a quiz next to see who are our champions of research for this week. Koki would be projecting the link to our quiz. It's going to be on Kahoot. It's easier if you have two devices actually, but if you don't, it's not going to be a problem. You can split your screen, keep the Zoom page on one, and then open your next. So basically that's an advice right now you can do. Split your screen, open Zoom on the top and open your browser on the bottom, and then go to kahoot.it. It's on the screen. and impute the pin that you see there. So we'll give you 2 minutes to do that. So as I said again, it's a quiz to determine who our champions are for this week. You'll get publicity on our pages of FAMSA as well as MSAKE Kenya. So let's see who was very attentive for this session. Again, the advice is split your screen, zoom on the top, your browser on the bottom, or you can use two devices if you have that. Then go to kahoot.it on your browser and impute the pin that you see above. Let's see, how many do we have so far? You can see we have 11 players, 13 so far. Good, good. Keep them coming. All right. So again, go to kahoots.it, kahoot.it, and put in the pin 6948979 on your browser. Good, good. Thank you. I think it was typed in the chat box. Remember, you can always split your screen because the problem is Zoom will show you the question, but the browser will only show you the answers. So you have to have two screens to see. You have to keep your Zoom page open and open a web browser page. The Zoom will show you your questions. The web browser will show you only the answers. So make sure you have another screen, not just your browser screen. I'm telling you this so that when we start, a lot of people won't have problems, that they will only be seeing the answers and they won't see the questions. Okay. I think the 2 minutes is up. We have about 40 players. Cookie, I think we can start now. And please, Samantha and Cookie, do not join. You guys know too much. So we can start now, Cookie. Let's see who was listening. It has started. Please respond. You have 10 seconds per question. It's a test of speed and accuracy. You have only 10 seconds. Please, a reminder. Great. At least people know about our geography and history. Yeah, it's a trick question, actually. Wow, people actually, some people think albino rights, their lives don't matter. Oh my God. Wow, that's interesting. Oh, sorry, no mention of conclusion. Of project. Yeah. Proposal is basically asking for ethical approval. Niamey is Niger, Dakar is Senegal, Dodoma. I have no idea. Congratulations anyway. Do you know us? Good. Good, good. So some people think newspaper articles matter the list. Okay, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, Research Panda, sorry, Gift took over. So currently the top people are Gift, Research Panda, I wonder who that is. Papers, who is that? Bree, why aren't you guys using your real names? I have a feeling that Samantha is here. Let's carry on, Cookie, please. 5 more to go. Some people actually think it's South Africa. Oh my God. Geography. Oh. It's not the conflict of interest you were thinking before, people. Okay, it's interesting. Yeah. So some people actually know that he has a degree in medical anatomy, not physiology. Yeah. So referencing styles. Ooh. We have quite the number of researchers here. Wrapping up the final one. Wow. Even I didn't know that. Well, congrats. So that brings us to the end. Actually thought it was Robert Mugabe as well. So the top 3 people. Papers, I wonder who that is. Research Panda and Gift. Congrats, 3 of you. But unfortunately, we don't know your names. Oh. So please, the 3 people, can you signify who you are? Maybe just take a screenshot of your page. I know they will have listed it as one of the top 5. Take a screenshot and then send it to us. That's the only way we can verify you. You didn't type in your full name, so we can't really see. Currently, before you exit your browser, just take a screenshot. I know it will post a page that you're one of the top 5. So congrats. Please send us the screenshot afterwards. yeah, I guess so. That was just to spice things up. So actually Africa is quite diverse and there's a lot to know about it. Even I didn't know the longest serving president was from Equatorial Guinea actually. Congrats to everyone that participated. I hope you learned something at least and you'll take something away from the first session. We'll have the second session now. It will be back to Innocent for the second session, which is going to be on the structure of a research paper. It's going to be quite brief, and then afterwards we'll have our Q&A session. So please keep your questions coming in the chat box. Also, if there's anyone that isn't able to join here, you can always join on Facebook, and there's a recording on Facebook as well at official FAMSA if you want to go back and look through. So thank you everyone for participating, and I would like to call back on Innocent to take the floor and continue with the second section of the webinar. Yeah. Official FAMSA is the Facebook page. And there are some trick questions as well, like the marriage proposal. Innocent, if you may, please, can you continue with the second section?
Thank you, Mustafa. That was an interesting bit. If I can, first of all, start by going through some of those questions. Like, is the manuscript the same as a paper? I think the manuscript is not the same as a paper. The first time I heard the word manuscript, I was shocked. I only knew manuscript as is understood in a traditional context. So I thought that they were written on papyrus reeds or something. But a manuscript precedes the actual scientific paper. It's what you write when you're submitting to a journal. And the paper is what comes after your journal has published it. So just terms, but at different stages. Then a proposal needs ethical consideration as well as your paper. While you're publishing your paper, you will need to have a segment in your methods that shows that you have been upholding high levels of ethical standards while conducting your research. And the other bit is when you propose, do you need approval from your parents? Hey, I saw some guys were radical enough to say no. If it is there, it is there. It is what it is. Yeah, it depends. It depends on so many things. And the next bit being that the discussion is the one bit of the proposal that's not there. It's usually there in your research paper, but not in a proposal. Conflict of interest means you are interested in conflict. Two people are really interested in conflict. That is the spirit of a researcher. So you can actually say that two people are really interested in conflict because you'll be bringing out your ideas which will be conflicting with the previous ones. But conflict of interest is not interest in conflict. It is, let's say, if you have several authors or a different group that is funding your research, they need to have aligned interests. The interests should not be in conflict. That is another thing that you'll need to make sure you have aligned before you publish your paper. The other bit is the organizations that have organized this. There is, I think everyone got that. And what is false about today's speaker? I never got the time to introduce myself, nor the chance, nor did I take that chance to introduce myself. as elaborately as that question required, but I'm interested in physics, matters physics a lot. And so you could say, yes, I'm an astrophysics junkie. And yes, I got a degree in Bachelor of Science in Human Anatomy from University of Nairobi. I am 6'2". So yes, I'm over 6 foot and a student at the University of Nairobi. If you want to know more, sorry. I'd move next to the presentation. I'm finding it difficult to project. Screen share. Give me a minute. Let me try from another device. Apologies for the chicken that are crowing in the back, at the back ground. They wanted their moments online, so they just had to clack it out. Goodness, I'm finding it hard to screen share. Okay, let me see if we can do it this way. In the meantime, we can brush over the structure of the proposal, because what will be coming next is basically the difference between the research proposal and a research paper, a scientific research paper. Can you give me a few minutes?
Innocent, is this the slide you were thinking about?
Yes.
I think I can help you with that.
It's showing. Okay. Thank you. So for the research paper, it is slightly similar to the proposal, where the initial parts, that is the introduction, the literature review, the justification, and the proposal, the methods, and the data presentation are almost similar to those of a research paper, but slightly different. For instance, in your research paper, you would find that there is, first of all, there's a list of authors, or if you are the only author, you can decide to list all your names. And secondly, there's usually an abstract. So you'll notice that in a research paper, there is a small, brief outline of what the paper discusses. The essence of the abstract is, again, you need to have a killer intro. When you approach that girl, when you approach that dude, you need to have a killer intro. Yes? So the abstract needs to be that good. Yeah? And it needs to be brief. A slight overview of the abstract can give interest to the reader whether or not they want to continue reading the paper or not. So that is essential. Then that's one of the things different from research proposal. The next is we don't necessarily usually have a literature review section in your writing your scientific paper. You only have the introduction. So the introduction takes the place of the research of the literature review, bearing in mind that different journals have different word limits. So you will have to find a nice way of seamlessly marrying the content from your literature review and your introduction so that it explains the full story in your scientific paper. This is where I say that writing your paper is an art. Listening to two people tell you the same story is different if one person delivers it differently from the other. That is the same when you're doing when you're writing your paper, either a proposal or a scientific paper. So your your research paper does away with the literature review. Often you may find that like the extensive papers might incorporate a literature review section, but typically it is not usually there. Then the other bit is the objectives. So if you want to publish, let's say you've already done your proposal, it has been accepted by the ethics committee, you've done your research, you've collected your data, you've analyzed it, you've presented your results, and you've thought of publishing your paper. So often an objective equates to a paper. So you can take one objective and publish it in, say, the New England Journal of Medicine, yeah, or even the African Journal of Anatomy, or the Annals of African Surgery, whichever journal you want to pick. It's often an objective is enough to have it published. And I want to stress this bit that whenever you're conducting research and your materials are humans or rats, it is imperative for you to consider publication. Why? Because these people consented and gave their information about themselves to you. You are morally and ethically obligated to publish. So for every research encounter, anything that you do that concerns collecting data from people, it is ethical for you to publish. Yes, because that is the reason why you undertook the research itself. So the different objectives match to various papers, publications. You can become smart about it and find ways of twisting the objectives so that you have more than just one paper. Again, it's an art. Next is, like you see in that page, in that slide, there is the one bit at the top left that touches on the objectives. And then the next bit is transitioning from objectives to results. Yes, so results are present in the research paper, but they are not there in the proposal. So your proposal is, will you marry me? Will you let me do this research? For your scientific paper, it's okay, now we're done with the proposal, let's make babies. Let us have scientific papers. Yes, so those are the results from your data analysis. Different ways which you say you're going to present them in your proposal is how you present them, in photos, in pie charts, in line graphs, whatever. Yes, so there's the results section that is again different from your proposal. And then there's the discussion bit at the lower right. See, people are sitting down and discussing. You have your idea, but your idea often contrasts with what was previously done. I mean, that is why you went and decided to do the research in the first place. Yes, so you will need to explain how your results either differ or concur with previous work, and state reasons why you think they differ or they concur. And once you've done that, then the next bit is the so what bit. So you see how the so what question that you asked yourself bears relevance when you're discussing your discussion. We discovered that sportsman resulted in an increase in the size of the toe. Yes, this was different from works done by Mustafa in this part. And we thought that the difference could be attributed to the number of cigarette smoked per person, or cigarette years, or even the park years. And we think this is important because it can tell the difference between gout and somebody who has smoked this particular type of drugs. Yeah, so your discussion should be in that manner. How different is it from others? How is it similar to others? And why do you think there is similarity and variance? So next slide.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, in conclusion, the proposal and the research paper are somewhat related, but variably different. And you need to find ways of transitioning your proposal into a research paper, because you're morally, if not ethically, obliged to publish every time you've collected patient data or experimented on albino rats whose lives matter. I stress, albino rats lives matter. So the structure applies to any other topic that you're interested in. So it allows room for this dynamic categories of research questions that somebody might have in different fields. So that is the essence of the structure. And I think I am done. Next slide.
Okay. So I guess we'll move on to the questions now and then. All right. So I guess, thank you. I think that was the last slide, right?
Oh, there was another one with a slight quote. But
oh, my bad.
But I can just state it. I can just state it. No problem.
Okay, let's see. Just getting it back.
Well, okay. It seems like I adjusted it. I had adjusted it from my end.
Yeah, that's the last one.
Yeah, so the parting shot would be that everybody knows how to dance. It's just that the world has not yet conformed to your dancing style. So just dance and the world might just catch up. That's with reference to research. So just conduct your study. And others might agree, others might disagree. It's just the same as dancing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now to go to the questions, there have been quite a few. Some of them have been addressed while you were discussing, like the table of contents for the literature review. And then there were quite a lot of questions around the literature review, but some of them you cleared up. I think we'll start with the first one about the literature review, which is if you want to write a paper, for example, the effect of smoking in Kenya, the literature that you will review, will it be limited to only Kenyan papers research, or will you search globally as well?
Okay, that's a really good question. When you go back to the justification or rather the introduction. While you're building up your research question, you will have to kind of move from the general to the specific. So you might say that globally, WHO has noted that there's an increase in the trend towards cigarette smoking, and from males to females. Then you narrow it down to, in Africa, these statistics have been rather scanty or unspecified or unclear. And then narrow it down to your particular region in your different country. That is how you go about your literature review, your introduction, and also your justification, so that you answer why we need to conduct this research. That can even be done from a general perspective. Why smoking? Again, different perspective. Why the big two? Again, general. But then once you move from those general figures in different populations or even global statistics, you now move to why this country, why this region. So you again start searching for those papers that touch on the same studies within that region, or at times you might not find any, and that is enough reason for you to conduct that study, that particular region, say Nigeria. And this will be relevant in confirming if the statistic you find in your country is different from the statistics that the global organizations are projecting. So your research you search for papers have to be both. They have to be both global and localized. I hope I've answered that question.
Yes, very much. And then there's another question about literature review as well. The relevant literature that you will quote, how far back can you take? Let's say 5 years, 10 years?
The reason why there's the reference section is so that you can quote the scientific author. It often doesn't matter how old the paper was, provided you give credit where it is due. So when you're writing papers in your scientific literature, you can go as far back as when writing was started, but there were no journals during that time. But it is often encouraged that you try get data that's like 5 to 10 years from now, and that would show that you're up to date with the current trends. But that does not limit the type of publications that you're including in your reference, or the ones that you cite in your literature review. It is important for you to focus on the 5 to 10 years because you are answering the question, why now? Yes, why now? And if you look at it critically, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to look at papers that are 5 to 10 years old. Yeah, because again, I'm a fan of physics. If you look at the Newtonian revolution, Newton had to confirm what Kepler was saying. Yeah, Kepler thought that they were circles, ellipses, but Newton felt like there was something more. Again, from Newton to Einstein. Newton had a particular understanding of physics. Einstein then classified it differently when he introduced the concept of space and time. So it doesn't really matter the time. You can take articles from as far back as is extractable.
Right,
but
thank you.
The question, all papers are relevant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. You had to give us the astrophysicist aspect as well. A question about the introductory part. Will you state the problem statement and background? Are they also part of the research proposal or a research paper? Problem statement and background.
The problem statement is also part of the proposal. You have to include it in the interest of clarity. at times somebody might have read it and they don't really quite get it. So it's always encouraged to write your problem statement. Your problem statement, again, which is just the same as your introduction, with a little who or what that's usually added at the beginning, basically wordplay. Yes, so have I answered that question?
Yes, you said it's included in introduction of the proposal then.
At the introduction, you'll find that by the time you're done with the last paragraph, the last sentence is usually an echo of your research question. It's known as the thesis statement. So by the time you're done with the last paragraph, your last sentence should echo your research question as what is known as the thesis statement. Like in our example, we'd say, therefore, this study will look into the chronic effects of cigarette smoking on the morphology of the big toe.
Yes, that actually responds to that. There's a lot of, in simple terms, I think some people are not getting this particular concept. The main difference between a research proposal and a research paper, I think in simple terms.
A proposal is a document that allows you to conduct the research. A paper is the story you tell from how you had the idea to the results that you found and how it merges with current conventional ideologies. Is that, I think that helps.
Yeah, very much. And there was a question about some places you can get literature review papers. Yeah.
Let me charge my phone a little bit. Where you can get literature review papers, you can get them anywhere. There was a question that was saying which papers are relevant. Yes. And there's some people who thought that newspaper articles are not that relevant. At times you get ideas from those papers. But the peer-reviewed journals often require you to cite scientific papers from journals. So their relevance is somehow constrained. And also the scientific papers are also somewhat constrained because not so many people can understand the scientific jargon that comes with the scientific papers. So the places where you can get this literature, these publications are as varied as school suppositories. Like in the UON, I was able to access several dissertations from a school suppository. So you log into your school website, then you go to your particular school, like in this case, the College of Health Sciences in University of Nairobi, and you go to the repository, not suppository. Sorry, repository. So then you type in the keywords. It will give you so much data that you can merge from that particular area that you're working on. Like in KNH, Kenyatta National Hospital, I was able to get dissertations from so many people around the kind of data that they did even 10 to 15 years back. So it's more specific. At times you won't get journals publishing these dissertations, but you'll find them in school repositories. The other places that you can get them online are like Google Scholar. Google Scholar is really broad and it has different filters that can bring you different articles. There is one Cochrane library. Cochrane gives you meta-analysis. systemic literature reviews and meta-analysis. There is, you can even go to ResearchGate. At times you want to get the full publication, you can send a letter or a request to the authors. You can go to PubMed. I think PubMed is what so many people are familiar with. Yes, so there are various repositories, there are various libraries that one can have access to. Simple way of doing that is going to your librarian in school if you're not familiar with the steps, and they can guide you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think there's one more question. When you're writing your proposal, how do you estimate the population that you would need to include in your research? How would you know that this population is required to actually infer something from the research?
Yes, I saw that question from Debbie. Yeah. Hey, Debbie. Yes, that's a really important question. And determining your sample size is a really important thing because you want to make sure that it is representative of the population. So in statistics, that's another thing I'm interested in, mathematics and statistics. It's not just physics. So there is the population, and then there is a sample of that population. So there is a population and a sample. So you have to make sure that the sample that you pick is representative population. In statistics, the sample will be represented by a small n, the population by a big N. So that in itself shows that that n should be able to be scaled to represent the population. How you do that is by making sure that first you have a large enough sample size. There's usually various minimums that one can work with, and numbers from like 40 and above are considered representative of the normal population through various statistical methods, though that is not usually encouraged. Try to get as many samples as possible. But then again, calculating your sample size is often tied to what has been previously done. You might find that somebody else had conducted the same study that we were thinking of, effects of cigarette smoking on the big toe in Egypt. Yes, so you might want to calculate your sample size based on that research that was done in Egypt. There are various mechanisms which you can do that. There are different papers that guide you on how you can arrive at a particular sample size. There are other apps that you can use. So there is what has been, I've seen some of the younger researchers do. I say younger as if I'm old. What I've seen other people do is that they've been using an app known as OpenAP. So OpenAP allows you to key in various data that you can get from previous works, and it will calculate the sample size for you. So that ensures that there's power in your study. Power allows you to assert your conclusions with confidence that for sure, cigarette smoking enhances follicular growth at the big toe of the right foot and not the left foot. It gives you power. So increasing your sample size gives you power. But when you have a small sample size, that is not cause for alarm. Thanks to statistics, there are various ways in which you can also extrapolate data from small sample sizes to general populations. There are different tests that you can run to affirm that this is representative of the big population. So the advice is try get as huge a sample size as you can, but regardless of the sample size you get, don't worry so much. There are ways in which it can be standardized.
Thank you very much. I guess that's about it for the questions, actually. So thank you very much for availing us of your time, and really opening up our minds to the proposals and how to go about it effectively and how to structure it correctly actually, how to source for literature as well, and what gives your proposal power, basically. So I guess that's the last question. So thank you, Innocent. I think there's one question. Okay, Open
Thank you.
API. It has been responded. They were just asking about the app that
Yes,
you just mentioned.
Open API.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for
Yeah.
So
I see some already familiar with it, like Ann Kima. Yeah. It's free.
Oh, it's free. That's really good.
Yeah.
All right. So
we like free things.
Everyone likes free things.
There's a hand. Somebody's raised their hand. Kigoto Karuto. Karuko.
Let's see, who is that? Okay. Let's see. Kigoto, please unmute yourself and ask. This is going to be the last question. Kigoto, please unmute.
Or maybe they were trying to lower it.
Yeah.
You can't really tell.
Yeah. Well, they don't want to respond. Maybe they're shy. They're microphone shy. So I guess you've done a really good job with this. So thank you very much for coming. I think we'll just conclude for now. So everyone, thank you for coming. Innocent, I don't know if do you have anything more to say? Final words.
First, I'd want to thank the guys who organized this committee. This forum, that is, the organizing committee of FAMSA, MSAKE, RePub, ReMed. This is a really good initiative for reaching out to undergrads. I feel like so many guys really want to conduct research, but there's so many misconceptions about it. This is one of the ways in which you can bridge that gap. So this is a good thing. Secondly, I'm only affiliated with one particular one, that is ReMed. So I can tell that from the kind of energy I've seen ReMed, so many guys are really interested in research. So I think there's one thing that has been added there, how you can reach out to me. The email has been added in the group, that is remedkenya@gmail.com. And yeah, I hope we can continue having such fora in the interest of having others. And thank you, Mustafa, for helping a guy from this other end. Technology, manenos.
No problem. Thank you very much. I think to conclude now, we have someone from Nikita wants to say some final words as well, just some announcements, and then from FAMSA as well. So Nikita, please, if you may.
All right, thank you very much, Mustafa. We've now come to the end of today's session. It was designed to be very short and as interactive as possible, because if someone knows the structure of a research proposal, they might as well be the one person to tell us about it. But moving forward, we'll have our next session on Thursday, same time. That's 1 p.m. GMT or 4 p.m. Kenyan time. Adjust it to your particular location. The topic will be interdisciplinary research. So that as much as most of us here are medical students and other health science professionals, we need to think broadly about the kind of research that we are undertaking, because sometimes you find solutions are best discovered when you collaborate with people from other fields. So we'll have a talk about that next week. You'll be seeing the posters circulating very soon. We'll have a broad panel of speakers from which you learn about the different aspects of the different fields with which medical research is compatible. So that's Thursday next week. I would also like to remind you guys to be on the lookout for the write-up that's coming. There's a document that's coming from FAMSA and ReMed on publishing and the whole process, where to publish, how to start, more to come in your emails or through your WhatsApp stories. Finally, I'd just like to give a big thank you to everyone who's been present for this session. We appreciate that you take time off your busy schedules to come and be with us as we share the knowledge that we've managed to gain in this field thus far. We hope to see you in future sessions. Feel free to bring along a friend, and if the room is full, there's always a Zoom, there's always a Facebook or a YouTube link to follow. You're encouraged to fill in our post-webinar feedback form. Your suggestions are highly welcome. All of this is for you. So like last time, someone suggested we should move the time from 12 p.m. GMT to 1 p.m. GMT because it's more appropriate to the majority of the audience. So we take your comments, your suggestions very seriously. Please fill in the form. All right, thank you guys for attending. Thank you very much, Innocent, for taking time off. I'm sure you had other things to do. And thank you very much to the organizers for exerting yourselves once again. We'll see you all next week. Have a good afternoon.
I think Lee has something to say as well. Final words, Lee?
Yes. This is Lee from FAMSA. So most has been said by Nikita. Thank you very much, Nikita. And also thank you very much, Mustafa, one of the members of the Executive Council. And thank you, Innocent, for the whole presentation, for your time, for your consideration as well. So I'd just like to remind you all that you can stay in touch with FAMSA specifically on our social media handles, which is at official_FAMSA on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Telegram. You can also reach out to us through emails, famsaarchives@gmail.com or hq@famsanet.org or president@famsanet.org, or directly to the Standing Committee of Publications, which manages this throughout, which is scopub@famsanet.org. In any case, SCOMER, which also organizes, you can also reach out to them at SCOMER@famsanet.org, and we'll be able to get through to you and respond to whatever concerns you may have. So thank you once again, and have a lovely day.
Goodbye, everyone, and thank you for coming. I hope we all learned a lot. So goodbye.